reliable coverage, and that key word there, reliable. I'll give you the quick background of how this map looks here. Is the blue outline is the county boundary. Anywhere where you can see the green area on the bottom here, where you see the topo image, that actually is the reliable coverage. The black area is the unreliable coverage, where you're not going to really get much coverage up there. And then the red, which is a large part of the county, is what we call its marginal coverage. There is standards out there that help us run these propagation studies that give us the thresholds of where these numbers should fall in there, and that they call it delivered audio quality, and where that threshold is. That for public safety, it's a delivered audio quality of 3.4, which shows that reliable coverage. All of that red coverage, you could or may have some coverage in that area. On your current system, that's where the scratchy coverage comes into play. As you get closer to the black areas, that's where you're going to get more of the inconsistencies on the fringe areas there. So looking right now, this is actually, and I could show you, and you can go through the report there, through all the different maps, they did a lot of iterations. This is actually fire, which is very similar to sheriff, which would just be a slight, just moving the site just a little bit down. And this right here provides about 50% reliable coverage based on your existing system. You have a little bit, you definitely have more coverage because, like I said, a lot of that red area, you definitely have some chance to get some coverage there. But again, that's not the typical public safety grade coverage that we're looking for there. So it's, with the more closer you get to the black, is the more likely you're going to have more difficult time to hear. I'm sure a lot of you experience that as you start driving further away from the Worcester area. You're going to start noticing that degradation. You start hearing it getting worse and worse there. So I thought this map was fairly telling with some of that, where we're looking at to have that negative impact, especially when you start getting to the outskirts of the county. When we started looking at the site conditions here too, one of the issues that we had was the outdoor cabinets there, and it did not provide a lot of HVAC type of requirements that we would typically like to see in a shelter, in an enclosed area. Even when we were visiting sites, it was still later in the winter time, and we were shoveling just to try and get access to some of these cabinets there. We have a lot of issues just trying to be able to, if we have issues, there's going to be other issues of just trying to service some of this equipment, and trying to provide some sort of guidelines that we document in that report of what kind of typical guidelines we'd like to see there. So as we start moving forward, it isn't just the technology, it isn't just the radio equipment, it's the site facilities that we want to see improved here as well. It helps improve the reliability. So there's grounding there is enclosures, but again, we're trying to help differentiate a little bit on what's a public safety type of grade based on a lot of the industry standards, the guidelines out there, to enhance those to mitigate lightning strikes to the greatest extent possible, make sure we're providing adequate air conditioning, heating for the elements there, and we document a lot of those different areas there. As far as backup power and those type of areas, that was we're set for there. You have generator power for a lot of these sites, so if something would actually fail, you lose commercial power, that was taken into consideration. We might get tested here if the storm I hear over here now, so we'll see how well that goes here. And one of the other bigger areas here too that affected the sheriff system across the county was the way we looked at it. I mentioned before, there's a single transmitter. This shows the single transmitter talking from dispatch out to any of the users. There's a reverse side of that. There is whenever the users talk back to the dispatch, there's a lot more sites there, which we'll just go right on to the next one here to show the difference in coverage that you can see from talk out from the dispatch to user to user to dispatch. There's a lot more sites in there, and that's not uncommon because you get a lot more transmit power from a tower site, from a base station out there, than you do from your portable on the street. So there's some more of the receivers out there to try and pick up some of that coverage. One of the limitations that we're looking at is for the sheriff system is that those receivers out there are just mobiles like you have in your car sitting on top of the base stations in these outdoor cabinets. So although they do provide a radio for you to have that talk-back capability, not the same receiver sensitivity, not the same robust equipment there, So it really has an impact on the overall reliability of the system here too. But it does provide, again, one of those, I don't want to say fixes, but one of the areas that we could, that was used to provide enhanced coverage across the county here. So, but again, you can start looking at the disparate systems here of talk out to talk back and how different that could be there, that you could make theoretically transmit in one area and then not hear any transmits back there, and a lot of different, all around the surrounding of the county there. So it's one of the bigger areas of concern, and trying to do a system designed for the county to help make sure this is more comparable and a balanced system. Trying to hit a little bit more on the highlights of our assessment. Well, we kind of covered a little bit the lack of adequate and reliable coverage. You just saw some of the maps. There's a lot more maps in there we did for just for fire, some conceptual maps we did for sheriff, we did a few other ones that we're just looking at some of the local repeaters that we saw around there too, just for as an FYI that we could look into. And the bigger area that we really started with was what Joe mentioned is, should we build a bigger tower at Kinney just to look and see can that help improve there? And when we did that, that's where we started with. Yes, there'd be some improvement in coverage. We always run calculations. We threw our estimates in there. And you build a bigger tower, you can maybe get 8% more coverage, and that's reliable coverage. And that's spending a lot of money on just replacing an existing tower. And again, it would just add to the fixes and band-aids to the system here, as opposed to taking a step back and looking at the system as a whole and looking at an actual coverage design that could meet all the users' needs here to help expand there, not just try and keep putting fixes in here. So that was one of the bigger areas that we wanted to take a look at. And when all said and done, when we talk about a system design, we're trying to say that you need more than just one tower there. There's more transmitter sites there. We did a lot of analysis to look to see, where that, how many sites it's going to be. We're kind of looking around 6 sites would provide just about the right level of coverage throughout all throughout the county, hitting a lot of major areas there. We don't have all the right answers to exactly, what sites are those right now, because that kind of depends on the next steps moving forward there. But tried to get the right number of sites there, which would be a huge improvement overall with the level of coverage right now. We took a look at the technology, using an analog system today and what's available, some of the digital systems. Talk a little bit more about the digital. The reliability to try and get rid of a lot of the inconsistencies there, to make sure the equipment can withstand the elements. And I know a lot of them have been over the years of trying to fix with the microwave there. We took a look at the microwave backhaul there too, and although that's working fairly well, that's also a little bit behind the times there too, with the capacity availability on an IP network that could really do a lot more for sharing of resources between sites, between dispatch centers, all those different areas there that we tried to enhance, and really that's becoming more of a commodity in this type of world, that you're not spending $250,000 for a microwave link anymore. They're definitely becoming a lot more cheaper and more affordable and providing the reliability that's necessary, that can provide a lot of the sharing of information there in the future. We hit a lot of the site upgrades, a lot of the recommendations that we'd like to see in a typical public safety site, what could be done at some of the individual sites, and trying to account for that. And then the other one is capacity growth there. Where you're at today, trying to look at a system approach here that is not just going to make you whole for 5 years. What's 10 years down the road? What's 15 years down the road? Looking at some of those. So what that kind of came around to is some of the critical design requirements, and trying to increase that leverage of coverage throughout the county, which is a typical of 95% outdoor coverage. And you still need in-building coverage here in certain areas as well. And that a lot of times has to have a large role on the tower site locations as well, so that we can enhance some of those coverage requirements. We showed a lot of different maps in there of what the in-building coverage looks like, as well as what some conceptual ones will look like from either any of the different options as well. We start looking too is that where a lot of the grant funding is coming available here is around the P25 systems, and really there is a large amount of coverage improvements with P25 here as well. I'll show you in a second the difference that we would look at. And it has a lot more of the flexible architecture. It can give you a lot more features and functionality that they weren't a big request at saying that we need this, we need that, we need this, but it does give you a lot more capability moving forward with those type of things that come just standard on a P25 system. And the other one there again is just as we're trying to focus on reliability, we're trying to focus on redundant components. We're trying to make sure that this is a public safety grade system. And you can't necessarily just go out there and Google public safety grade and expect the requirements to come out there. A lot of it's based on best practices. A lot of it's based on individuals like yourself working a lot of committees to try and put some of those requirements together. But we're trying to make sure you have the right level of coverage, the right level of reliability, and really to meet all the needs throughout the entire county here. Just talking a little bit about, we talk about APCO Project 25. The digital standard, once you move digital, there was a lot of discussion, a lot of years, and you can do many presentations for a couple hours just talking about the progression of digital technology for public safety. It started with APCO, the Association of Public Safety Communication Officers. Really it moved over to TIA, which is a standards body, to try and develop some of the actual standards across the board. Really what this is referring to is that it gives the opportunity, you can build out the infrastructure, the tower sites there, and then you can have subscriber equipment, no matter what the manufacturer is, to work on this system. Similarly to how you can buy any analog radio today and it will work on your system. This is trying to move it to the digital world so that you can buy any P25 digital radio and be able to operate on the system here. It also has a good opportunity as digital radios are more expensive than analog. It has decreased the price of digital radios with the competition greatly over the years here, as this has definitely progressed. We talked a little bit, and we'll probably see a little bit more about that, the funding availabilities with P25. Interoperability has been a big key word of a lot of that over the last 15 years here as well. But again, it's moving to digital. You have to make sure there's a lot of different standards in place here and how you can operate depending on the frequency band, making sure that you have those capabilities there. There's a lot of different compliance testing out there too to make sure that these radios do work on the P25 system, so it's not just a, yeah, this is P25, you can trust it. There's actually, you have to go through a testing process just to make sure all these radios work there. So when all said and done, this definitely has taken a lot of steps in the right direction there, trying to overcome some of the shortfalls even whenever it initially started coming out there. And it really does improve a lot of the quality of coverage here. And just as a for instance, tried to show a little bit, taking a step back of any system design here, just looking at analog versus digital here, from what the existing system looks like from a talk back from the user to the dispatch to what a digital system looks like. A lot of that red area starts disappearing there because digital, just by the nature of it, provides more reliable coverage further on in the system there. So, not looking at anything as this is like what a design would look like or anything like that, but just trying to show the impact of how that could help improve and provide some reliable communications along the way there too. So looking at some of the options, we kind of took a step back here. I threw the first one up there too, just we talked about, it was kind of what started the conversations there, is that the right course to take. We want to at least look at that. Again, we kind of mentioned a little bit, it provides some improvement, but whenever you're all said and done, all that's going to do is take some of the red area and probably make it clear.